You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John.
Yeah, it's just not been a good couple minutes. Came down in a good mood, but then spilled coffee everywhere, bad mic stand, and now audio. Just
the gremlins, they're out.
This is Mike in conflict right now.
Mike in conflict, yeah.
Oh, but yeah, man, another RTS title, and
yeah, I mean that's me, right?
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I love RTS, and I had never played this game, so this was an interesting listen for me.
Yeah, this this game came out in late 2000, or was it 2007?
I think it was 2007, yeah.
Yeah. And boy, did I play the hell out of it. I think I had a couple friends who played with me, multiplayer a lot, enough that I think I had the collector's edition of this game, which came with a piece of the Berlin Wall. So that was fun.
That's interesting.
But it's a game that it's an RTS, and but it kind of introduced some new. Well, it didn't introduce it. It built upon, because the people who developed it, Massive Entertainment, they were the ones who their first game was Ground Control in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And Ground Control was a RTS where you didn't base build. You just had like a supply limit that you would call in troops for, and it was all about like capture areas and that kind of thing. And it was one of the best RTSs I ever played.
I've never played that one either. I feel like I am just pulling up the rear when it comes to RTS titles, because I've got a very narrow scope.
I just like those types of games because they allow for, as opposed to focusing on your economy and all that, you can focus on the tactics and the micro, and usually your units have abilities that you can use, like hotkeyed and all that.
Yeah.
So it's a new take. It was a new take on RTS, and then World in Conflict was there was a Ground Control 2, and then World in Conflict came out, and that was kind of the next evolution of that in a more realistic. Ground Control is like a sci-fi game, and this is obviously 80s, 1980s.
Yeah, 1989 I think was when this takes place, but
Cold War.
So does this type of game have a different feel for you compared to other RTS games? Does it have, or does the realism of the combat and this scenario have a different draw, or is it pretty much the same as a Command and Conquer feel for you? Is it
the realism?
The realism, does it matter to you?
Yeah, I think so. There are games now since that have kind of built upon this. It's there's like Regiments, which is a game that came out pretty recently, and Steel Division, which is another game that is similar, where they are very focused on more realistic combat. World in Conflict was a bit more arcadey than those games, kind of one of the first games that really focused on it. But because you didn't have a base to worry about, just being able to delve into tactics and using your teammates, one of the great things about this game was that in multiplayer games, you would play 4v4. You would pick a role. So you would either be infantry, armor, support, or air.
Okay.
And you could get other things for extra supply, but for the most part, you'd be focused on your role. So you'd have to like work together with your support to get in arty strikes. You have to get your helicopters in to take out some armor. There's a lot of rock, paper, scissors in it, where there was anti-air, and anti-air would shoot down the helicopters, but they would be susceptible to tanks, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's an interesting combination, just because I have never played an RTS where there is no base involved. But I could see from watching the long play, or at least part of the long play, that it's very mission oriented. You're very much on the ground with the units and directing them on where to go and what to accomplish, rather than managing your base. So I think that was a cool aspect of the game that I found myself interested in while watching the video.
Yeah, and the thing that you can do when you don't have to worry about a base, one of the interesting aspects that they had were these this idea of tactics points, where you could call in tactical support. So like you could call in paratroopers, you could call in airstrikes, you can call in artillery, gun runs, that kind of thing. And you would get those points based on doing the objective. So if I got an objective, or if I was holding an objective, or if I killed an enemy, I would get tactics points that I could use then to, do something extra.
Get bonuses, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the tactics, the top tier tactic, was the tactical nuke, where you could tactically nuke an area and blow up a whole bunch of people. So that was always fun to see.
Nice. So in multiplayer, I'm trying to picture how this goes. Do you just have to? You said it's 4v4, and you just have to find each other on a map, or
you're kind of cordoned off on each side of generally there's a couple choke points that have objective markers on them.
Okay.
You have drop zones, one on one side, one on the other, and then you just kind of go at it. So you'd meet in the middle, try to flank them, try to get advantageous positions, hide in the forest and ambush tanks as they roll by, that kind of cool stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I guess to comment on the soundtrack, I wanted to know, what was it about this soundtrack specifically that brought you back to it? What was it that captured your attention with the soundtrack and thus picking it?
It's interesting. I didn't really remember the soundtrack, and one of the reasons why I picked it was because I remember the game so vividly. I love the game for what it was. Part of the problem is that it kind of the multiplayer died because Massive Entertainment got bought out by Ubisoft, and the Mass Gate, which is their server farm, whatever, went with it. There is now a third party, massgate.org, which brought it all back to life, and they have their own servers they're running World Conflict on now, which is kind of cool. Kind of shows the longevity of the game. But I had never really given the soundtrack a thought, so I figured it would be a good idea for me to go listen to it and see, kind of see how that evokes some of the memories of the game, and maybe appreciate the game again for a different reason.
Absolutely. Well, I will say that going into this, I had preconceived notions of what the soundtrack would be, what it would encompass, and I was partly right, but I was mostly wrong, and I was surprised by just how different it actually was to my expectations. One of the other things is I want to say that when I was done listening to the soundtrack and watching some of the game to kind of gather my thoughts, I was in the middle of bringing my thumb to the close button, and this voice kind of came over my ears. It was raspy, solemn, intense. It stopped me in my tracks, and it was fucking Alec Baldwin narrating, because he plays one of the characters. I'm like,
oh yeah, man.
I was like, what? So
who, does he play Sawyer?
He plays the main American soldier, I think Parker or something.
Yeah. Oh, Parker. Okay.
So that was interesting to me. But about the soundtrack, I was blown away by how subtle it is, and really just not your typical RTS soundtrack. I was very intrigued. It kept me kind of dialed in to listen to the themes and the way they compose the tracks. It's not your typical RTS soundtrack, and I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it kind of goes that route is because the single player campaign, and another great thing about this game was that the single player campaign had a lot of drama, had a lot of voice acting, and had a really good story, like an interpersonal story between you and a couple other commanders, and then your commanding officer. Because this game is not, you're not base building, you're not like an army building a base. You're a lieutenant in this whole thing. You're running a company, and you have other companies that you have to work with. So you have those interpersonal relationships. So there's a lot of that drama that gets fed into the game. That's less of a nation versus nation, and more about you're just a bunch of guys trying to survive.
The personal level of it. And that's interesting, because watching the long play, a lot of the music really takes center stage when there's a a cutscene or in between levels, and that's different. And I think that's kind of unique just because it does ramp up that interpersonal relationship of what's going on. You are, like I was saying at the beginning, you're on the field with your combatants and you are living it instead of just, bird's eye view everything. And I think it brings a level of interaction and involvement in what's going on that normal RTS games maybe don't have. And so that music really felt theatrical at times.
Right. You go from something like Command and Conquer, which is very campy, very over the top. Like Red Alert is super over the top. Mm-hmm. There's nothing very serious about the story and the acting.
And it's very fantastical,
Yeah. Whereas this is very grounded and very dramatic and serious. We'll say that, we didn't mention it yet, but Ola Strandh is the composer. Mm-hmm. You may know him from The Division, which is he worked on when they went to Ubisoft. Yep. And this, and then he also did Ground Control. So, it's just an excellent soundtrack that kind of is. I would compare it to Frank Klepacki's The Great War, or I forget what the title is, but the new World War I
Great
game.
War Western Front.
Yeah. Except that one is a bit more bombastic. There are like dramatic moments in the Great War soundtrack, but for the most part, it's very bombastic and grand. Whereas I think this is a lot more subtle and a lot more somber than that is. Yeah.
And what I was saying at the beginning is my mind immediately, when you say RTS, it goes to your bombastic soundtracks. It goes to StarCraft and Dune and Command and Conquer. But this just really strikes a different chord, and it manages to capture the darker side of combat a lot of times. There's a much more serious tone and mood as the game plays on, and this music just kind of sits in the background. It's there, and you can see it, or not see it, hear it, but it's really just setting. It's not really anything more than a set dressing. I'm not saying it doesn't add to the experience, but it takes just a completely different route to elicit emotions from the player than a traditional RTS game. Just a song like Tundra, it's oddly serene with periods of complete silence. There's beautiful strings that kind of just sustain over and over in this really delicate melody. It's hardly a song so much as just
ambiance, kind of.
Yeah, but it works for the game, and it's just such a strange song. I never would have thought was an RTS song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you take a song like that, and to have the wherewithal, especially like I'm sure they worked pretty hand in hand with the story director and all that, the writers and all.
Yeah.
To kind of pull away to not add too much of music, to give those moments time to breathe, but also add enough of that long violin or long string melody to add a little tension and then kind of take it away. It's very strange to have those kinds of tracks in an RTS that seemingly are so well thought out like that.
Yeah. And there are very few songs, I would say, surprisingly, that really ramp up the tension. I would say even the tense songs manage to stay in the background and manage to get your heart racing, but you don't know it. It's one of those things. I was watching, again, that long play, and there was just a mission where you're controlling 4 soldiers on the ground, and I believe it was a Soviet mission, and they're going to sabotage some anti-air missiles of the Americans. And you're just watching these 4 guys go. You're commanding them. It's like there's just this steady thumping of the bass going the whole time. Maybe some wooden percussion keeping like a steady beat. Not too fast, not too slow. And that's all it is the whole time. But it's like, okay, I'm feeling the tension of the situation, and you're entering enemy base and you're trying not to be spotted. It really did its job, and it was so simple. Yeah. I was like, damn, this feels pretty good.
we didn't mention it yet, but I'm sure you got from context clues. But the games is centered around a fictional Soviet invasion of Europe, and also a Soviet invasion of the west coast of America. They take America by surprise after committing a lot of troops into Europe and invade Seattle. So you fight actually at the Space Needle, and it is a game that set in the late 80s. That tactical nukes and nuclear warfare is on the table. So I think the heavy nature of all these songs really is what that is about. Like, this is a world war. There's nothing fun or exciting about it. It is terrible, and you're just living. You're just trying to survive through it.
Yeah, and I feel that with just about everything that is on this album. There is a lot of darkness to this album and a lot of tension that, again, is subtle but is very effective.
Yeah, one of them I think really is a great track early on is Incursio. It starts with this beautiful like adagio intro. It swells. There's a very baleful tone to the strings and horns. At the middle, they kind of fade away, and then you get this like tense plucked string for a few moments before you get this marching snare that takes over. Song builds again, and it just kind of has this more militaristic flair, maybe signifying that the fight is on, that the enemy is here. But there's that tension, sadness, and then even through the marching, the march part of it, the snare, there's still that baleful tone that kind of ekes through and still gives you that sense of dread. Yeah,
and I think that's a through line for the whole album, is just the costliness of war and that interpersonal relationship you as the commander have with your units. This is more than just, sending people to the slaughter. You kind of feel the losses, and they definitely exude that feeling through the music. And I think that is probably one of the main through lines, is just how awful things can be. And yeah, I think they did a really good job here. One song to kind of piggyback off that would be Looking for Survivors. It's probably as obvious as you can get. Very, very somber piano melody opens this track. It's exactly what the title is. A sad moment, a desperate moment. There's really nothing but fear and horror in this track, and it really dials in that darkness. When the strings start to expand on the melody, you get chills. The bodies are strewn all over the place, and the search feels futile. This is just a wasteland of war. The song's very powerful and sad. And then at the end, the piano melody that opened the track just comes back to imply that the search continues despite, it not looking good. You're not going to find many survivors, unfortunately, but yeah, a completely different feeling.
Yeah, every song seems to have that through line, and there's a track that is called "Bin and Sacrifice," and that is reference to a mission in which you have to pull out of Seattle, and there's a large Russian contingent that is amassing, and from on high they have deemed it a target for a tactical nuclear weapon.
Oh no!
And Bannon, your company commander friend, sacrifices himself to hold them at bay while the nuclear weapon goes off and dies in it. So, just the most
intense.
awful thing.
Yeah.
For an RTS game, it's crazy that this is like, and it's not played as like a heroic. It's just kind of it's heroic, but
it's more focusing
tragic.
on the tragic. Yeah.
That's
intense.
It's but also like along those lines is a track "Broken Flower," which this song kind of, for a game that's ostensibly about action and war, this like lovely acoustic ballad. This comes out of nowhere.
Yep.
It has a plucked guitar. It's backed by some beautiful strum chords. You make your way through this sad song, but the plucked solo guitar is then answered by this electric guitar. And it's as if like two friends are having a very sad and tragic conversation. It's an amazing track that's kind of hits you in the gut, kind of late in the album. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. And it reminds you of those relationships that your characters are going through, right? It's that conversation between guitars kind of makes those feelings a little bit more real. There are a couple songs like that on this album where it's like, where did this come from? It's
I know.
It's so, I don't want to say eclectic, but the moods, while that darkness is a very, very prominent through line, the moods change a couple times. Not necessarily like away from darkness, but there are songs like that. And what is the other one? I made note of it. Mike and Anton. It just felt so different from anything else on the album. It has stress behind it. A hurried string melody provides all the tension of the moment with deep horns filling it out. But it's just such an unusual song at the time it plays on the album because it's so different from anything you've heard on the album to that point. And like the acoustic guitar of your song, there are these moments on the album where it shifts and then it comes back. It brings it back to the main ambience of the album. And I thought that's so interesting. They kind of stop down for these real personal moments.
Yeah.
Because obviously this song is between two people and your song as well. I think there are these moments where the composer really wants to dial in the relationship aspect of what's going on.
Yeah, this song is great because it kind of has that almost madcap beginning of the track. It seems out of place, but as it builds and builds, it kind of fits back in with the tension of the strings. And something obviously you're running from something. I don't remember what this track is referenced to, but it's a great kind of out of character piece, but not really. It kind of fits back in as the song goes on.
Yeah. Has Ubisoft talked about bringing this back at all, or like a sequel?
I don't think so.
Probably too busy with Assassin's Creed and all.
I know. Yeah, I mean they worked on the Division and Division 2.
Yeah,
they haven't made an RTS since this game. So,
and it's really one of those dying genres, man. I hope Frank Klepacki really keeps it alive. I hope he brings it back. It seems like it's just him.
I know
him and his crew. Thank God.
But, yeah, I mean, there's games that kind of evoke the same aspect. Like I said, like Regiment is a game like this, where there's no base building, there is supply, and there's like planning phases. It's a bigger scale game, and it's much more. It's more realistic. It's more realism focused as opposed to this is a bit arcadey, but still has some realistic aspects to it. There's also Steel Division 2, which is a similar game.
Okay.
That has this like it's a strategy game that doesn't have base building, but it is. And I mean, this kind of goes back to my love of Homeworld, where Homeworld there is a base, but there's no real base building.
Yeah.
It's more of just you're deploying fighters and getting resources.
And I've never played an RTS quite like this, so I am intrigued and interested in it. I know that in the later 90s, early 2000s, the games I do know, like Command and Conquer and Dune, they got into and StarCraft for that matter, they got into the missions within missions aspect of RTS, where it wasn't always about dominating your enemy. It was about accomplishing an objective. Right. And that really added a dimension of customization to me. Like it felt like I was in control of how this played out a little bit differently than just, destroy your enemy. So a game like this, I would be very interested to see how it feels to really just put the base building aside and complete your objectives from mission to mission and kind of see how that feels, because it does seem interesting.
Yeah.
Especially with that multiplayer aspect.
Yeah, you can get the complete edition, I think, on Good Old Games, and I don't know if you can get it on Steam anymore. I have it on Steam, but I don't know if you can get it on Steam anymore. But yeah, and I mean, it still plays. It's still a quality game. The single player campaign is great, and like I said, I don't quote me on the veracity of the actual applications. You basically have to hack your World in Conflict exe for it to be able to talk to the third party servers. So at your own risk, but there are third party servers that are available now that people do play on. But I mean, it's not a lot of people. That's for sure.
It's so fun when people really take it upon themselves to keep games alive.
Yeah,
I experienced that with Dune 2000 and Command and Conquer. There's Open RA, but anyway, they have their own servers. They've rebuilt these games, and people are playing them daily. And that's so cool because Westwood is an EA company now, and they definitely shut those servers down. So it's nice that those games still exist and there's an audience for them. Especially this game this is no different. I think that's really cool that people take it upon themselves to keep these games' doors open and the lights on, even if it is technically not legal or 100% on the up and up. It's just, they just want to play your game, so let it go.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with it, screw it.
Just let us play your game.
Just let us play your game. We already paid for it 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But so, I mean, this is just an interesting soundtrack. There's a lot here and a lot to talk about like we have. So it makes, again, just a very interesting listen. Again, it's not really what I was expecting, but that's not bad. It just really subverted my expectations and it opened my mind a little bit as to what an RTS soundtrack could be. And I think for a game of war, I always expect the strings and the orchestral arrangements, but I expect the more bombastic things and some of that grooviness of, say, your Command and Conquer. Overall, it's a very well thought out soundtrack and manages to provide quite a nice backdrop to the game itself. It's not an overly present soundtrack. The themes are only accenting the battles. They're accenting the happenings of the game with a subtlety that's pretty impressive. Of course, the score is there while you play, but it's very much just icing on the cake. It doesn't draw too much attention from what you're doing, nor do I think it really wanted to. So this is a game of calculation and decision making, and thus the soundtrack really utilizes the appropriate instruments to really draw out that emotion and create tension with as little as possible. Good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a soundtrack that obviously I had kind of forgot about and didn't really focus on when I was playing the game. And to go back and kind of re-listen to it, have some memories re-invoked from it.
Mm-hmm. Makes you want to play it again.
Yeah, I literally re-downloaded it and I applied the patch and I played some multiplayer games.
Nice.
But yeah, it surprised me at how beautiful this soundtrack is, and how serious it can be, and how to take these real-time strategy games that deal in real life struggles and things that may occur and kind of have occurred in the past, and treat them with a bit more weight than maybe some other games do. So it's good to see that they kind of have that care, and they understand that war is awful and tragic. And even though we're playing a game about it and having fun playing the game, you still can have that in the back of your mind, especially when the soundtrack is playing. I mean, this soundtrack, if you're running a role playing game and you want something tragic's about to happen, you probably want to put this soundtrack on because it's going to be a great backdrop.
Yeah. So I would rate this, I think, an 8 out of 10 sickle and hammer emblems, just because I think the soundtrack, while very good, it's not something I'll probably come back to, just because they're not your traditional songs. You do have to be in a specific mood for this. Yeah. I'm not going to throw it on like greatest hits lists or anything.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I have to say 9 out of 10 for me, 9 out of 10 pieces of the Berlin Wall. I think it's a great soundtrack. The game that it's based on is one of the greatest RTSs that nobody ever knows about. Yeah. I just hope that it did its job in influencing the genre to some of the games that are out today. And hopefully we get more games like it in the future and more soundtracks like it in the future. Yeah.
And for those who want to listen to it, you can definitely buy this soundtrack on Amazon.com. I believe they have the digital version. Or you can listen to it on Spotify and YouTube in its completion or entirety. And John, is there a website where we can find the composer at?
SoundCloud.com/Ola Strandh, OLASTRANDH.
Awesome. Well, go there and show him some love because, always want to show our composers some appreciation for their work. And John, I believe that's the reviews. So if you would like to say goodbye, sir, please do so.
I'll see you in the skies over Europe.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple.
We're not doing that.
Never mind.
Try again.
Scratch that.
Check it out. Look it up.
John?
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, we like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the
Yeah,
podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.